Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a monster analysis on Bonnie Bark. Now normally I don't do monster analysis on epic monsters because most people will rarely ever use epic monsters. Well, they'll use the top tier epic monsters, but more recently every single epic monster that's been released is honestly like a little mini legendary because they are incredibly, insanely good, and Bonnie Bark is no different. When I show you her skills, you're just going to be blown away and you're going to ask yourself, why isn't she a legendary monster? Because she's definitely better than some of the legendary monsters out there. So with that being said, let's get into this monster analysis on Bonnie Bark. Bonnie Bark has earned a reputation of being the most cunning in the canine clan, and rightfully so. Highly respected by her mafia brothers, this seductive thief is notorious for using her beauty to get her way. Careful not to flirt or you'll be flirting with danger. And so here we have Bonnie Bark as a child, as a teen, as an adult, and like with the other canine clan monsters, I'm absolutely blown away by how incredible the monster design is. I just absolutely love the effort that was put into designing these monsters from the canine clan. And with that being said, I'm not exactly sure how to go about this, but she is an epic monster, so she's a part of 138 epic monsters, so there's a ton of epic monsters out there. But more specifically, she's half fire element, and she's half dark element. So the fire element had 25 epic monsters, and the dark element has 42 epic monsters. And as for her books, once again, I don't really know how to go about this. Should I show you the legendary monsters or the epic monsters? But for now, I'm going to stick to epic monsters, and you guys can let me know if you want me to show you the legendaries or just not show you anything at all. But my hopes by sharing this information is that maybe in the future, there's going to be like restrictions that is female and epic, in which case you're going to be using this video as a resource. But anyhow, going back to this, she's part of the female book, which houses 12 epic monsters, and she's one of the few to be a part of the family's book, which is home to 3 epic monsters. And then lastly, she's part of the Evil Legions book, which is home to 13 epic monsters. And with that said, we can talk about her stats. Her power is 2720. And again, since this is the first time me doing an epic analysis video, I'm not sure whether this information is that important or not. So I'm going to give you the ordinal ranking. Her power of 2720, this puts her in 74th place. 74 out of the 138 epic monsters. And as for her life of 20,301, this puts her in 37th place. And then lastly, her speed of 2870, this puts her in 57th place. Or tied for 57th place, and it's the same for power and life. She's tied with other monsters. So again, I don't know how useful that information is, because by giving you guys the ordinal ranking, it kind of seems like she isn't that great, and that's not necessarily true, because if you were to look at the epic monsters, there's a whole chunk of them that have a power of 2780, 2800, 2810, so even though she's like in 74th place for power, it's really not that bad. And furthermore, epic monsters, typically you're going to give them 3 team speedruns, maybe you'll give them 1 speed and 2 team speedruns, and you'll rarely ever give them like individual runes, like 3 speedruns, unless you can somehow pull it off for a specific war, specifically for PvP. So most of the time you're going to give them 3 team speed anyways, so the stats don't necessarily matter too much unless we were to have an all epic war. Well, that's when you want to know which epic is the fastest, which epic is the strongest. But just to show you guys what her level would be at 100, so where she's like kind of equal to legendary monsters, we'll take a look. Power goes up to 2992, life 25,000, and speed 3157. So clearly her stats are nowhere near that of a legendary monster. And anyhow, as for her trait, she's immune to possession, which I personally think is a really good thing. Once again, when you look at her skills, you do not want this monster to get possessed. Yeah, of course it'd be nice if she had hardened, because then she'd have some sort of immunity to all sorts of deny effects, but you really do not want this monster to be possessed. Because if she is possessed, keep in mind you can't just recharge anymore. Now the AI is going to do a random skill, and you're going to come to see that pretty much whatever skill she does, it's really going to work against you, so you do not want her to get possessed. And so I am a huge fan of Bonnie Bark being immune to possession. And then as for her relic, she can hold a trap relic, which is pretty good, and she can also hold a staff relic, which is amazing, because I personally think that the staff relic is one of the most powerful relics in this game, and you don't even need the diamond relic, you don't even need the gold relic. If you get your hands on one of the silver relics, you are pretty much good to go. You can deny enemy monsters, you can counter monsters that do stamina drain, and then if you happen to get your hands on some of the gold relics, well then even better, because those really take away stamina from the enemy monsters. So she has really great deny potential with the relics alone, and then couple that with her skills, she's phenomenal. And now of course you could be thinking, why are you going to give relics to an epic monster when you could give it to someone else? Again, it's all situational, it all differs on a player to player basis. If you're the kind of player that can afford to give her relics, keep in mind that relics now cost gold to remove and change. So if you need to remove a relic and give it to Bonnie Bark for a specific situation, go ahead and do it. But anyhow, with all that out of the way, let's move on to her skills, starting off with her ultimate skill, the Trail's End. Disables trait from all enemies, applies possession to all enemies. And so here we have an attack that attacks all of the enemy monsters. It doesn't deal any damage or anything, but what it does do is that it disables all of the enemy's traits. And it does that first, and after it disables traits, it possesses the enemy monsters. What does that mean? That means that possession cannot miss. Possession is always going to be landing. Well, again, I'm not really too sure, because what I've been seeing more and more is that the chance got reduced. It used to be 100%, so if it used to say applies possession to all enemies, that would always land guaranteed. But now it says 98%, and so Social Point is potentially nerfing this from 100% to 98%, just so there is some chance that you don't just easily deny and win the game. So honestly, I'm not completely sure what's going on. I haven't been on the forum, so I don't know if they've talked about this. But yeah, regardless of whatever the case is, this skill does disable the enemy's trait. So whether they have Bulwark, whether they have Artifact, it doesn't matter. That trait is completely gone, which means then there's a chance for that possession to land. And seriously, how amazing is this ultimate? The enemy can't really block this. The only way to block this is if they previously did a skill that gave them immunity to possession. But if they didn't do that, they're gonna get possessed. That is awesome. And now that we're done talking about the ultimate, let's talk about skills group 1, because there are 2 skills I want to mention. The first of which is Passion Felony. Applies stamina regeneration and life regeneration to itself, requires cooldown. 11 stamina costs 3 turn cooldown. You get 2 regenerations, 1 for your life, 1 for your stamina. It's a self skill. You never know when self skills can come in handy, in case you ever need a recharge. Instead of recharging, you can just activate your self skill. You not only cost 11 stamina. If you were ever to get total blinded or dazed and blind, and you think your attack is gonna miss, why attack when you can just give yourself life regeneration and stamina regeneration? And of course, if you ever were to get possessed by one of those skills that bypasses immunity to possession, well, there is that slight chance that the AI might do your self skill, so it could come in handy. But with all those positives being said, I gotta say I don't really recommend Passion Felony, just because she has some other incredible skills that you're gonna completely forget about Passion Felony. And so speaking of an amazing skill, the one I am gonna be recommending is Where's Clyde. Deals moderate fire damage to one enemy, 50% chance of applying possession and total blind to one enemy. So this skill deals 30 damage to a single enemy, costs 26 stamina, it has no cooldown, which means you can use this skill even if you were to get hit with cooldowns activated, and this skill is a possession and a total blind. Now this skill does say 50% chance of applying possession and total blind, but as has been the case with every single monster that's been released after the release of the Nemesis monster Samael, every skill that says 50% is apparently 100%. So right now this skill is going to be amazing, at least as of the time recording this video. If you're watching this video in the future, that may not be the case where it's 100%, but it's still a really good skill, because it does 2 deny things. It does possession and it does total blind, both of which are really good. Some people may look at this and think, why would I want total blind and possession? That doesn't work, it's counterintuitive. You know, now the enemy possessed monster is going to tag his own team, but he's going to miss. It's pointless, it's useless. But no, that's not the case. This is amazing because there are so many monsters that have the hardened trait now. There are monsters that have the tough trait. There's Bulwark. There's the Orc trait now that has a 25% chance to not get hit with negative effects. So with all these effects that give some slight chance to avoid negative effects, you want skills that do a lot of negative effects. That's why Zyron the Ruby is so incredible, or all of Zyron actually. She can give like 3 control effects, it's insane. Or no, not 3 control effects, she can do ignition and 2 control effects. Regardless, it's incredible because regardless if the monster has Bulwark or whatever, you have a higher chance of landing something, some sort of control effect. And it's no different with the skill Where's Clyde. You have a chance to land possession, you have a chance to land total blind. Let's say the enemy monster is immune to possession, well then you're gonna guarantee that total blind. Which is great, right? Isn't that what you want? And not to mention, when you're controlling the enemy monster, your main purpose is just to protect your monsters. Regardless of whether or not the enemy monsters attack themselves, that's a whole different story. When you freeze a monster, they're just frozen, they skip their turn. When you stun an enemy monster, once again, they're just stunned, they skip their turn. When you possess a monster, sure, it's nice that they attack themselves and they waste stamina, but even if they're blinded, that's still good because now they attack themselves, they waste stamina, they may not damage themselves, but they've activated the cooldown on one of their attacks, and they can't use that attack for a while, and they've lost stamina, so it's still a win-win. Where's Clyde is an amazing skill that I'm going to recommend everyone to run. And so now moving on over to skill group 2, we have Lawlessness Love. This skill removes all negative status effects from one ally, it applies double damage and precision to an ally, and it requires cooldown. So this skill costs 23 stamina with a 1 turn cooldown. You target one ally, and you give that one ally double damage, increased accuracy, and you remove any negative status effects it may have. And personally, I think this skill is incredible, and this is one of the reasons why I was saying you could potentially run Bonnie Bark with a speed rune and 2 team speed, because then if you have an attacker legendary monster that has team speed and 2 strength, or maybe 2 team speed and a strength, that's going to make your Bonnie Bark go before your attacker. So let's say you're in a situation against a Nishan's Pet. Nishan's Pet is AoE possession, and you brought a deny monster that's immune to possession. Bonnie Bark is immune to possession, but your attacker, he's just a strong attacker that isn't immune to possession. So your main deny monster and your Bonnie Bark, they weren't possessed, but your attacker, he was possessed. Well, it doesn't matter. Your main deny monster can go and then do an AoE control effect against the enemy team, or maybe he can single deny, single control the enemy attacker. Regardless, he can stop the enemy monsters from attacking you. So then either the third monster goes and their turn is skipped or whatever, but then eventually goes over to Bonnie Bark. Bonnie Bark can do Lawlessness Love on your attacker, so now your attacker is no longer possessed, and now he has double damage, and now he has increased accuracy, so his next attack is not going to be missing and he's going to be dealing a buttload of damage. So this skill has a lot of potential. I love the skill, it's incredibly usable, but with that said, she has a better version in Skills Group 3. And well, subjectively better, because you don't get double damage, instead you get damage boost, which is half of double damage, but it applies to your whole team as opposed to that one single individual monster. So again, it really differs on a player to player basis. If you're specifically in that scenario I mentioned, where the enemy has a super fast Nishan's pet, let's say he's level 130, let's say he has level 10 runes, and you have a denier with immunity to possession, Bonnie Bark with immunity to possession, an attacker with high level strength runes but isn't immune to possession, then that would be the perfect scenario to run this skill because you get that double damage. But you know, you gotta ask yourself, how often is that gonna happen? And I can't answer that, no one can answer that. But yeah, you could consider running this skill, it's not bad. Who knows, maybe you can test it out and see if you like it or not. And so anyhow, next up we have Playful Pose, deals very heavy dark damage to one enemy, applies blind to one enemy, 45 dark base damage to single enemy monster, 23 stamina cost, no cooldown. If you get hit with cooldowns activated, you can always have a skill to use. It blinds the enemy monster. Pretty simple skill, pretty straightforward. I don't think it's worth running just because you have better skills in Skills Group 3. Also in Skills Group 2 we have Canine Fatale, deals moderate fire damage to one enemy, applies possession and blind to one enemy, requires cooldown. So 40 fire base damage to a single enemy monster, 27 stamina cost, a 1 turn cooldown. So if you were to get hit with cooldowns activated, you wouldn't be able to use this, at least for 1 turn, and so this skill has a chance to possess and a chance to blind. So it's very similar to where's Clyde, except instead of total blind, it's a regular blind, but whereas Clyde is 50%, whereas Canine Fatale is 100%, or I guess 98% now. So it's up to you, which do you think is better? Again, as of the time recording this video, 50% skills are actually not 50%, they're actually 100%. So right now, whereas Clyde is better. If this whole 100% bug is ever fixed, well then it's really debatable. I think I would have to recommend Canine Fatale just because I can't stand 50% skills. I don't want them to miss. But then again, you know, it's a 50% chance for each. One for possession, one for total blind. So maybe one of them will land. I would just say just test it out. Maybe you're a lucky person that lands it more often than you miss it. I don't know, I can't really comment on that. I can't make a generalization. It's really going to come down to player preference. But anyhow, with all that finally said, we can move on over to Skills Group 3, and I've been dying to talk about these skills. So Avoid Gippsland. Removes all negative side effects from all allies, applies damage boost and precision to all allies, requires cooldown. So this is a skill that targets all of your allies, costs 38 stamina, it only has a 1 turn cooldown, which is surprisingly low for what the skill can do. And what the skill can do, most importantly, what I love about supportive skills is that they remove negative side effects from all of your allies. I love that it does that because there's so much that can go wrong. There are so many negative effects. There's so much. So the fact that she can remove negative effects from your whole entire team on a 1 turn cooldown, that alone is insanely great. But on top of that, she gives all of your monsters a damage boost and increased accuracy, so their next attack does not miss. And so it goes without saying that I personally have to recommend this skill. And then next up we have Attraction Distraction. This skill deals moderate dark damage to all of the enemies, it applies blind to all of the enemies, and it requires a cooldown. So 35 dark base damage to all of the enemy monsters, 23 stamina cost, 2 turn cooldown. It's an AoE blind which will reduce the enemy's accuracy by 50%, a pretty straightforward skill. And if you've been following me for a while now, you would know that I love blind. Sometimes I love blind more than deny effects, or control effects I should say, because there have been so many times when I blind the enemy monster and they can't touch me. And vice versa, there's been time when I've been blinded and I miss every single attack. Even though it's only a minus 50% accuracy, I'm missing every single darn attack. So sometimes I wish I would just get stunned instead of blinded. And so once again, it goes without saying, you should absolutely run Attraction Distraction. And then for the final skill we have, the mother of all skills, Weapon of Mass Destruction. Applies possession and total blind to all enemies, requires cooldown. This skill deals no damage to all of the enemy monsters, it costs 30 stamina, it has a 2 turn cooldown, and it does possession and total blind. And so the really cool thing about Weapon of Mass Distraction is that it deals no initial damage. And when a skill deals no initial damage, you can forget the accuracy. This skill isn't really a 90% accuracy, it's always going to land. At least the effect is always going to land. If the enemy monster doesn't have one of those traits that reduces the accuracy of a negative effect landing, you can guarantee that that total blind is always going to land. You can guarantee that 98% of the time possession is going to land. And then if a monster has like hardened for example, well then 80% of the time total blind will actually land. That's how landing negative status effects actually works. There's an accuracy for the damage to land, and then once the attack actually lands, that's when the accuracy of the effect landing takes effect. So for example, if this would have dealt 10 damage, there's a 90% chance to deal 10 damage, and if you do successfully deal 10 damage, well then there's a 100% chance to deal total blind, and a 98% chance to deal possession, and then whatever trait the enemy has, that's when you reduce it. So for example, if they have Bulwark, well then it'd only be a 50% chance to land total blind, but that's only after you landed the initial attack. So just a quick little summary on how landing effects and landing attack works. But all in all, what I want to say is that Weapon of Mass Distraction is just a phenomenal attack. It's seriously incredible. Bonnie Bark, because of this skill, it reminds me of like Kihaku. You know, Kihaku can do a very similar thing, except he doesn't do Total Blind. But Bonnie Bark does. She does Possession and Total Blind. I absolutely love it. I think this monster is phenomenal. I think it's great that most of the players currently playing the Gangs of Monster Legends event Progressive Island, they're going to be getting Bonnie Bark, and potentially enough cells to maybe rank her up to the next level. Maybe in the future they're going to give her out in the survival dungeon, in future Monsterwood videos. I don't know, I'm really looking forward to getting this monster ranked up and utilizing her in Team Wars. And so as of the time recording this video, my recommended skill set for Bonnie Bark would be all of Skills Group 3, and then Where's Clyde from Skills Group 1. And if Where's Clyde ever gets fixed, and then if Where's Clyde was ever to get fixed, while you could still potentially use it, I would recommend testing it, but if not that skill, then run K9 Fatale. And also keep in mind that you could always utilize Love over Avoid Gippsland at any given time, or you can even run both skills if you technically wanted to. Once again, it always differs on a player to player basis. It's whatever you like, it's whatever your playing style is. But that's my personal recommendation. And as for runes, once again, she's an epic monster, so she doesn't get the luxury of 3 speed runes. You have to run her with team speed runes, maybe 2 team speed runes, maybe 3 team speed runes. Again, there are just so many different factors to consider, so different team war scenarios that I can't really give you a definite answer. But for the most part, if you want to play it safe, give this monster 3 team speed runes. Maybe you can use a turn transfer monster like Demise to give Bonnie Bark an immediate extra turn, have her immobilize the enemy monster with Possession and Total Blind. That's always a usable strategy. And so yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Now I want to hear from all of you guys. What do you guys think about Bonnie Bark? Do you like her? Do you dislike her? How do you think she compares to the other epic monsters? Specifically, the top tier epic monsters. You know, I'm talking about Ophiuchus, I'm talking about Nautilus 1. How do you think she compares to those monsters? Do you think she's better than them? Do you think she's not as good as them? Or how does she compare to Kaori? You know, the queen of epic monsters of applying torture status effects. How does she compare against her? Whatever thoughts are going on through your guys' mind, please let me know in the comments below. I am so looking forward to reading your guys' reactions to the fact that I did an analysis on an epic monster. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. Also be sure to join the Discord, the brand new Discord, Monster Legends Coalition. There's a link in the description below. With that being said, really hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.